front of one of the most relevant content creators in 3D printing community. And this is Clayton, aka Uncle Jesse. Thanks for being here
Hey
today,
there.
Jesse.
No, thank you for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this conversation here.
What a pleasure to be talking with you. Actually, I have many topics to talk with you. So I have divided this interview in three main topics: YouTube, resin, and post-pro.
Great.
We're going to start talking about your beginnings, your early beginnings. Maybe some people don't know, but you started making videos about Xbox and podcasts. Can you tell me something about this stage on your career?
Yeah. Yeah, this was actually the whole Uncle Jesse persona was is my Xbox. It's all related to Xbox. So that's been my Xbox gamer tag now for 18 years, something like that, 16, 17, 18 years, for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And I started making videos specifically around the new Xbox. I think it was the Xbox One was being released, and they had a camera, the Connect camera, and you could do fitness videos with it. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna like just make all sorts of content around Xbox and utilizing the new camera and whatnot. And saw moderate to okay viewage when it came to making those videos. I didn't put a whole lot of effort in them. It was a lot of just recording with a an old phone, or this was before I had like a nice iPhone with a camera or anything like that, or before I had a nice camera at all. So I was just using whatever I had, and would basically, I didn't even have a tripod at the time. I would put boxes, stack up boxes on top of tables, and position my camera there so I was in frame and would record things. But ended up randomly, not randomly, I ended up actually buying a MakerBot Mini and started making just sporadically videos about the MakerBot Mini and my 3D printing sort of tips. And I immediately saw that there was a lot more interest in those videos than anything else that I was making content for. So I basically started to slowly transition over into making lots and lots of 3D printing related content. And in fact, yeah, go for it.
But probably cosplay has been always present in the majority of your videos. Where
Yes.
this passion came from? Yeah, these are examples of this.
I have been a long time fan of comic books and video games and toys and action figures. In the US, there used to be a toy store called KB Toy Stores. It was some people might be more familiar with Toys R Us, was like a big
Yeah.
name company. So that was one of their competitors. When I was very young, the very first job that I had was at this toy store, so that I could get a discount on buying toys because I was collecting action figures and things like that. But I mean, that's where it all sort of came from, is probably my passion for comic books at the time and just pop culture and movies. And I'm a big, still into video games. I was literally, right before we got on this, I was playing Xbox, so it's
This is the main
I was like,
combo,
oh,
cosplay and
yeah,
Xbox.
yeah. I was like, oh, I've got 15 minutes of free time. Let me jump in real quick and play a game.
And probably sometime later, you bought a brand new A8 A8. Was this the trigger for you to take up 3D printing? I mean, maybe you thought 3D printing fits perfect with cosplay because you can make um,
Well,
weapons.
yeah. Well, the really big beginning of it was even before 3D printing. I actually, even before I had the Uncle Jesse YouTube channel, I
Mhm.
had another YouTube channel where I was making Pepakura, which for anybody that's not familiar with what Pepakura is, it's you take a 3D model and
Mhm.
then you flatten it out and you print it on paper, on card, like thicker cardstock paper, and then you cut it all out and then glue it together, and it forms like an Iron Man helmet or a Magneto helmet. And then I started documenting the process of me trying to make a Magneto helmet long before I had a 3D printer. And then I was hanging out online in different message boards at the time. I don't even know if there are still message boards anymore, but they, I was seeing how people were using 3D printers to make things. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need a 3D printer. And that's sort of where I was immediately knowing, all right, I've got to get a 3D printer. I need to start figuring out how I can make cosplay things with it. And one of the very first things that I made was a Judge Dredd badge that I have somewhere. It's even probably on the back shelf here. It was literally the 3D printer that I had was so small, it couldn't even print a full Judge Dredd badge, one of those little police badges that they wear.
Really small.
I had to print it. I had to print it in 2 parts, and then I printed a something else from one of the Marvel movies, like a little emblem for what was it? A Hydra logo from one of the Marvel movies.
Moving to another topic,
Yeah.
if we talk about YouTube as content creation platform, do you think this has been turned into a showcase for other businesses more than a source of incomes itself?
It can be. I think it's like a dual. It definitely has a dual purpose. I think there's still a large majority of people out there just creating and making content and sharing it on YouTube, which I think is great. And it, traditionally YouTube has lent itself to more of a long form content of people making things that aren't really short and putting them out there versus, you had Vine previously. Now you have TikTok that's really big. Now YouTube's with their YouTube shorts, which are exploding, which by the way, if you're considering or thinking about making a YouTube, definitely do it. I'd say get out there and start making it and start plugging away at those little YouTube shorts. That's a great format to get in, make quick content and post it and see some traction with it.
I make it on Twitch.
Yeah. Oh, see,
I make
there we go.
my show is on Twitch. Is live, not today, but normally it's live.
Yes.
And I think this is a good platform for people who wants to share knowledge, probably, and 3D printing. I would like you to give your opinion about the role of sponsors and other platforms as Patreon as a way to support the creator. Because we know you work closely with Elego and also with Patreon. Do you think it is essential for a creator?
I don't think it's essential. It obviously is extremely helpful. I mean, it's essential for me now because now I'm doing this as a full-time. I'm trying, still in the process of doing this as a full-time thing where I've left my day job. This is an amazing thing that I've been able to do this, and so thankful for people watching my videos and supporting me through things like Patreon or companies and brands sponsoring the videos, which is extremely helpful so I can continue to make projects and things like that. But I wouldn't be zeroed in and focused on that. Like, when I got started with this, I wasn't thinking I'm going to quit my job. And I never thought that, like in a million years, that I'd be able to leave my job and do this as an actual living. It wasn't in it for the money. It was just in it to make things, to share it out there, because at the time there wasn't a lot of content around it. And still there's lots of ideas or different approaches to already existing ideas that that people can take to, to get that information out there and in front of people. And of course, sponsorships do help because it helps, when it comes to either using a new machine or helping fund a project that I'm working on it's a really nice way to offset some of the costs that's involved with these things, because it takes money to create content a lot of times. You need to buy machines, you need to buy tools, you need to buy supplies, or you might have camera equipment that you're looking to upgrade and buy. It all sort of helps funnel in and further expand the content that you're creating.
Yeah. So risky election to keep your job. You have to thought about a lot about to keep your real job and devote all your time in creating content and videos.
Yeah, what's funny is I've had the conversation a number of times with offline with a number of other creators. for me, I had a full-time, I was, more than full-time job, it was a 9 to 5, but it was really
Yeah.
all the time. And I was traveling a lot for my job, and which again, absolutely loved my job, but it meant that, I also had the family. So I'd get done with work, I had to take my family time. So when everybody goes to bed is when I would start doing all of my video work. So from like 10 o'clock at night till 2 in the morning was when I was doing my projects. And then I had to be quiet because everybody's sleeping.
Typical life of content creator.
Yeah. But it's, it's at a certain point there, I was sacrificing sleep more than anything to be able to build content. Or the big thing for me now is what I'm really loving is that I can make more content, which was the big goal for me. I was like, all right, if I do leave my day job, I should be able to start making more videos than I was previously. And yeah, I went from making maybe one video once a week or every other week to at least one video a week to now typically I try and do 2 to 3 videos a week, and then I'm doing TikTok videos and all sorts of other short format videos in between.
And finally, to end this blog, as you
Yeah.
said, TikTok, and could you please explain us how to make a short YouTube video goes viral? I mean, your legendary dragon is almost 10 million views. You're crazy.
If I knew how to do it, I would repeat it over and over again. Actually, what's funny is there are people that have, I watch a lot of videos about 3D printing and other things, but I also watch strategy videos and people that talk about making content and tools that they're using or approaches or algorithm ideas that they have. But some people have suggested that if you find something like that dragon idea, that you should just continue to iterate on that same subject. That if you're seeing, oh, this got 1 million views, all right, let me try and do it again and see if I can get 2 million views, or if I can get 500,000 views. The other thing that's wild about TikTok and YouTube Shorts is you can make a piece of content and post it, and it doesn't get a lot of views. But all of a sudden, like a month later, it'll explode. And I'm not entirely, I still don't know why that will happen. But sometimes I make videos and they do okay. And then all of a sudden, I start getting notification. I'm like, what is going on?
It's crazy. 10 million views. Absolutely crazy.
It's a pretty cool opportunity to, actually, I was going to say the big thing with that is that they do really well, the short format videos, is it gets your content into a lot more people's hands or eyes than your traditional longer format videos, where it might only come up if they're searching, versus if they're just scrolling through, your video is more than likely going to pop up and they might check it out. So that first 3 to 5 seconds is probably the most critical thing for you to do something and catch their attention.
And probably people out of your traditional community of people who follows you in other social medias.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's entirely true.
Yeah. We move to the main topic of this interview or chat, and it is resin printing. Yeah. Yeah. You are a
resin
professional.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I just love it. I conscientiously, I made a big shift to resin printing over a year ago. It has to be almost 2 years ago now. Not that I don't, do FDM printing. I have an FDM printer running right now. There's another one running in the other room. I still do lots of that, but anything that I'm really making for myself, I'll almost always try and print in resin now, just because the quality of the prints
details,
are just
yeah,
unreal. And anything for me when it comes down to time savings. So if I'm not having to sand something for an hour, if I only have to sand a little bit of this for 5 minutes, then that's a huge time savings for me and helps offset some of the costs associated to printing with resin, or the mess that people think of when you think of resin.
And do you think that resin technology is currently living a boost regarding to advancement, improvements in machines, new materials, like a golden era?
You know what's funny is just a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I'd started with a resin printer, or 1 or 2 resin printers, and the material cost was so expensive. And now it's drastically come down. And I mean, just the machines have come down in price. The cost of the resin itself has come down drastically in price. Yeah. So it's that alone, I think, is helping aid it in elevating it to a lot of people wanting to try it out, especially with the lower end cost entry, like the El Gumars or the Anycubic lineup of printers, or the Voxel Lab. That Voxel Lab has some machines that are like $150, and it's just amazing that you can get a mono screen 3D printer that screen's going to last a long while. You're going to get good quality prints for $150. It's not huge. You can't make a helmet with it, but if you want to make little statues or D&D minis,
or Homer,
and I think that whole that whole subculture of people that are into those D&D style games, I think that's really what's helped elevate some of this. I love printing those models. I don't play any of the games. I just think the designs are amazing. Yeah. And I love the fact that a lot of them are pre-supported, so it's easier for me to print things. And they just look really cool. But that community is all about, finding new ways of making models, or making more affordable models, or doing things themselves. Because they've been doing that for years with kit bashing and painting all of their own things. And now that they have access to 3D printers, it's just blown open the doors for them.
Totally agree with you. Resin Stacking is one of your most famous videos. Could you explain us this concept and some advantages and drawbacks of resin stacking?
Yeah. So hold on, because I have an example right here.
Yeah. If you can give us an example, it's perfect.
So here's a whole bunch of these tiny miniature magnetos. Typically, when you resin 3D print something, you're just going to print one layer of files. Mm-hmm. But this whole concept is basic resin stacking. You are literally stacking files on top of each other and finding different ways to support them, so that you can better utilize the vertical build volume of your 3D printer. Because with a resin 3D printer, anything that you're filling up on the X and Y, it's going to print just as fast. So it doesn't matter how many files you have loaded up on there. What matters is how tall is going to determine your print time. So having something like this, for me, is really cool, because I can set this up, print this overnight, and when I wake up, I have, like 100 magneto files, versus me having to print one set at a time, take them off the printer, load up the printer again, run it again. But you're wasting a little bit more material, or in some cases, a lot of material.
Yeah, for the supports.
Yeah, for the supports. And it's such a cool concept. And I still have some things that I want to explore on this. Specifically, I've seen people doing things around jewelry design and making, which seems really incredible, where they're making rings or necklaces and using the stacking approach to, again, maximize their printer that they have. Because you could, again, have one of those smaller $150 3D printers and print a whole lot of things in one go, versus having to stop and start over and over again to print just a handful at a time.
Yeah. I'm not an expert in resin, but I know that a good wash and cure is essential. Please, which are the keys for a good wash and cure process?
Let's see. A good wash and cure process is going to come down to clean isopropyl alcohol. So, and what I mean by that is when you're cleaning your prints over and over and over again in resin, or resin 3 prints in isopropyl alcohol, it dirties up the clear liquid and will get very foggy and just kind of gross. And eventually it'll just not clean as well. So there's a trick that a lot of people use where they'll filter out the IPA or the isopropyl alcohol, and or they'll have multiple containers of it so that they can have a clean batch, a dirty batch, and a really dirty batch. So you start with the really dirty, then you go to semi-dirty, then you go to really clean to help cycle through and maintain the lifespan of that. But having a wash and cure machine versus hand doing it makes things so much easier when it comes to dealing with the mess of cleaning resin 3D prints. So anything like one of the big ones that I'm a huge fan of is the Anycubic Wash and Cure Plus. It's a really big one, and you can tilt the UV light, and it just works so well, and it spins at a pretty good speed where it's just going to help thoroughly clean those prints for you.
And how often do you change the alcohol? How often?
I mean, it really depends.
It depends,
on how much you're printing. But one thing that I need to do is I tried to make a video on cleaning your isopropyl alcohol, and it did not work very well because it was so I waited too long and it turned into a sludge. So I've had an experiment going in my closet for like 2 months now where I had some that was really dirty. I set it to the side. I probably didn't need to wait 2 months. I probably could have waited a week, but it's been sitting there. I just haven't got to the project. And when I've gone and looked at it, all of the resin that was mixed in, the particles have shifted to the very bottom of the container. So now it's just a matter of filtering out that clean resin over and over again. But there's tons of different videos that people have made online about different ways to do it. So I'm going to continue to play around with it. Just any way that you can save money and not have to just, dispose of that is a big one.
Yeah. From the collaboration with Andrew Sink, recently you have released Racine Labs cables. How it works?
So we made a way that you can make time lapses of your resin 3D prints. So there have been for years now, people have been making FDM 3D printer time lapses. And for me, it's just too complicated. I don't want to set up Octoprint and all that other stuff. It's too much, too many cables, too many wires, too many pies that I have to set up and all this other stuff, and have to print things, adapters and whatnot. So it's what I wanted was with collaborating with Andrew was developing a way that's really simple for us to create time lapses with a camera. So we synced it up where we have a photo sensor on a cable that you can hook up to your camera, and every time the printer flips on its light to capture a layer, it's going to trigger your camera, and snap a picture. And then you can export all of those photos and then create that into a video time lapse. And then that's what I use in all of my videos. So it's, selfishly, it was for me. I just wanted a way to create time lapses. And then we figured out, well, maybe there's people that are actually interested in this as well.
And which kind of connector has the shutter? It's like mini jack? It's like jack?
Yeah. So right now we have support for Canon DSLRs and Nikon cameras. The problem we quickly ran into, because Andrew and I both have Canon cameras, so it was no brainer for us to sort that out first, is that Sony uses a different connector. On Canon, all are using different camera connections, and even within those camera brands, the adapter that you need could be different. Like on certain Canon cameras, it uses a different connection. So not even on all Canon cameras this will work. So thankfully, we've found a good solid list of what cameras are supported and have that up on our website with the listing.
It is one of the most important brand, Canon, Lumix, Panasonic, and also Nikon. They are the main ones.
Yes, exactly.
If there are any big difference between resin and FDM, at least for me, is the importance of controlling the material in a good way. I mean, with PLA, it's easier because with a good temperature and speed, all goes well. But if we talk about resin, we have to take into account speed, exposure time, inclination, good supports, and many things. So
Many things.
can you sum up for us the basic tips for a starter to have acceptable results? For a
Yes.
person who
For
just came
resin,
in this world.
yes.
For
So
resin.
the one thing that I think people neglect or don't or aren't even aware that impacts it is
Mhm.
cold weather or
Cold weather.
cold room temperature. It can affect your resin
Mhm.
and the printer with it properly printing. So people have reached out to me saying, "Oh, I'm continually getting failure after failure after failure, and it's because their room is too cold. So it needs to be warm." And for on the US side, it's 68 degrees Fahrenheit here.
Yeah.
So and I'm not sure what that translates to,
Here,
but
for example, here in the south of Spain, probably today is 10 Celsius degrees. 10 is so cold.
so I have in my room here, depending on how cold it is, I'll have a space heater running while I'm here. I don't leave it alone because I don't want it to catch fire or anything like that. But that's a big one. And
Mhm.
then the others are just really the probably your exposure time.
Mhm.
A lot of times, the printer manufacturers will recommend overexposing, so a
Yeah.
much higher exposure setting, just because it's more likely to guarantee that it's going to print. And then the other big one is your bottom exposure. So
Mhm.
having the how long when it goes to actually initially print, how long is it going to flash the image on that build plate for it to properly stick? So the higher the number, the more it's going to expose it and be really stuck to your build plate.
To,
So
to
even
have
for
a
me,
to have
yeah,
a good strength in the bottom of the piece,
yes,
probably.
yes,
Uh,
yep.
Okay.
So that it sticks, so that you're not going to get an hour into the print or 2 hours into the print and
Yeah.
it falls off. So those are big ones there,
Yeah.
and obviously having it all properly supported. There's a whole learning curve involved with when going from FDM to
Yeah.
resin. But thankfully, I think some of the softwares that are out there, Prusa Slicer, Lychee Slicer, Chitu Box, are doing a pretty good job of
Yeah.
making it easier for you
Hmm.
to get in there. And actually, one of the best things that I would recommend is Lychee Slicer. One of their newest updates has user profiles that are
Hmm.
out there that have been shared. So if you have a particular printer like the Elgu Mars 3, I
Hmm.
shared one of my profiles in that community or in that software. So you can find my profile for the Elgu Mars 3 that I use for, the Elgu resin, and use that exact same profile as a starting point.
Yeah, like on Prusa Slicer or
Yeah.
Cura or something like that. Okay. Um, moving to the last block of this interview, I would like to talk a little bit about post-pro techniques. Imagine
Yeah.
we talk about a cosplay helmet, for example.
Yes.
For you, what are the essential for a good final look? I mean, maybe primer, sanding, good paint,
Yeah. It's
a general idea.
yeah. I'm actually, it's funny you bring this up because I'm working on a video. Two of my favorite techniques to
Spoiler.
finish cosplay stuff is, one is wood filler. So stuff that you would use around your house. So you can put that on your helmets or whatever it
Mhm.
is, and it dries really quick. It's cheap. It doesn't smell bad or anything like that. And then it sands really smooth. So you can just get in there and sand it down, and it helps smooth out the layer lines. And then the other, so that's
Mhm.
one, was the wood filler. The other that I like using is resin. So taking some of the resin from Resin 3 printers and brushing that on to the surface, and then using a UV light to cure it. And then you can sand that smooth. And it's sort of what I'm going to be working on is just comparing the two to see
Mhm.
which one I might like better or which one provides the best results.
So interesting.
Um, yeah, but those are the two big ones that I use to initially start. And then it's all about priming and sanding and more sanding
Uh-huh.
and more sanding and filling. I use a lot of auto body spot filler as well to help fill in any small divots or holes. And then it all depends on the finish that you're going for. I'm a big fan of like rub and buff as well. Might not be great for large cosplay things like a helmet, but for smaller prints, you know, putting down some primer and some black paint and rub and buff, it's like a silver or gold look to it. I'm just trying to see if I had an example behind me. Oh, actually I do. Here is you know, a Thor statue where I just spray painted this black, and then there's silver rub and buff paste, and you just gently brush it on, and it gives it helps things pick up the detail of your 3D prints.
So looking forward, this video is really interesting.
Yeah, it's it'll be a fun one to try out. I mean, I'm also interested to see which one because I honestly don't know. I'm in the middle of it right now. Hopefully next week I'll have that up and running.
And another one regarding with FDM. Do you think that FDM technology and resin are going to coexist always, or is there any moment in which resin is going to replace FDM?
No, I don't think it's going to replace. I don't think it's going to replace it. I'm still waiting to see how these are going to further evolve. I think we're in a really interesting space with both of the technologies, and waiting to see what new improvements come. Because with like resin, we keep getting, you know, higher resolution screens or faster printing. On the FDM side, it's either, you know, it keeps getting bigger and bigger, or I know some companies are interested in things like machine learning. So it sounds like there's going to be cameras hooked up to the machines to help identify potential issues with your printer or your prints, which I think is really cool. I'm still waiting on someone to make a really solid app for your phone as well that can be tied to either a resin or FDM 3D printer that just gives you basic updates. And again, I know that you can get Octoprint up and running and do that.
To do
I don't want to do that. I want to have it built into the printer.
Yeah, totally. And this is the final one. We know from your last video that you are going to move to a new studio, more space, more facilities. And also in some part of the videos, you talk about a woodworking station and a laser. The question is, can we expect new videos by Uncle Jesse about these fields?
Oh, yes. Yes, for sure. I'm already, one of my good friends is going to be, he has lots of woodworking tools and machinery and has already said, I can, you know, borrow his and bring them over to the space. So he's also looking forward to using that space.
Hunting for a glow forge right now, and some other fun laser related projects here so that we can build some really cool things, maybe video game related. I'm not sure. Well,
oh my God. So the only thing left for me to say is many thanks, Clayton, for this interview. I know you are extremely busy person, so it has been like a dream for me to share this time with you today.
No, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a blast and such a wonderful format. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Yeah,